Rachel, can you call roll, please? Here.
Here.
Borough, Herbert,
Let's see. Thank you. I'd like to make an announcement that an executive session was held on Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023 at 9:00 p.m. to discuss a real estate matter. Council, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion made.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. We will now move on to public comment, and as most of you probably know, tonight we have two issues only that will be up for action, but this time can be used for anything else as well. But this is your chance to weigh in on tonight's action items. We encourage all of you speaking to come to the podium and speak into the microphone. Since we are transmitting on Zoom, complete your comments within 3 minutes, stay on topic, present your comments in a spirit of cooperation, and be respectful to the institution of Borough Council and the public in your words, tone, and gestures.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Vicki Slazinski. I'm an Army veteran and a 27-year member of the William Fahey American Legion Post 491. I'm their finance officer and adjutant. I'm again here just expressing my concern over the ability for our members to have access to the parking lot for many reasons, to include many of our members are elderly and some are handicapped. That's okay. So, and then in the event that that the library is sold and an easement is put into place, I would have concerns about whether or not, if that building would be sold again, what would be the case, if those easements would stand, or if this issue pops up again. And then and the other thing is too, in the parking spaces behind the building, there's one handicap spot, and I'm wondering, will that remain, or will there be other handicap spots put in place? Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlotte Watson, 523 Magnolia Street in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. I'm before you today to give history, correction, and good advice to those people who sit there who are new, who don't have any experience, and to understand that you have an obligation to the citizens. You don't have an obligation to an outside entity first. And what we see many times is that not happening here. So I hope you pay attention to what's being said here, and sometimes you have to make a stand. I earned good money, was administrator in school, but I made a stand, clear up to the superintendent when it came to the rules of IDEA and serving the special ed kids when I saw a violation that they were perpetually violating intentionally. And I wrote a letter saying how I would no longer take that directive my first year as administrator. And I would set the tone according to the rules of the federal regulations. That's a big risk. This is not a paid job. You can take a risk and stand much better than I could at that time. And I still had my job. First, I want to tell you that our borough created, constructed, and maintained that parking lot. Since its origination, we were the people who did that. When I say we, because we, the taxpayers and citizens, own whatever the borough owns. We're what's behind that driving force. We have governed and maintained its surface since its inception. And I think the year, like, don't quote me because I don't have my stuff in front of me, might exactly been when the deed went down, 1960 or 1961. The borough ordained who used it and how. And I have sat in this hall, not this one, but the one up there on Broad Street, the other side of Broad Street, and heard the library come ask, could they use those spaces for certain purposes? Could you designate them? So the borough designated some spaces so the ladies who brought the children to the children's program could easily get out of cars without getting out on the main street. They also designated a handicap over time. And the 3 spaces on the right near the sidewalk were for the post office. That's so our public, citizens who are deserving, could move very well in throughout that parking lot. There's no interruption between vehicular and pedestrian traffic. What we're seeing proposed will create that. And that's definitely something we can't have. Many ladies are behind there. Sometimes I see ladies behind there in hatchbacks or station wagons, back in the day, station wagons, changing their babies. And if we're going to have some sort of easement on there, or people even driving anything that's going to constantly be coming through there, because you're not going to be able to control it. You tell me a box truck, but you're talking about a furniture store. Later on, there'll be somebody come picking up a little piece in their own car or pickup. So you're generating more traffic. And then it leads me to the fact that somebody said, well, they just let us use that. They were so nice, the library was. They let us keep meters on that. That's not true. When I got the deed, we paid $12,000 to make a parking lot. And because we all had the shared vision of the library, the post office, and the parking for the community around there, which happened to be a hardware store, Western Auto, American Legion, people who are from there know that. Therefore, that public parking was important then as it is now. If you look across the street, we have the professional row next to Letty's, going on down east. It's easy to walk from that parking lot to where you want to go. It's easy to go over to Holly Peters. It's easy to go to American Legion. It's easy to go to the post office. All that is common without threat. We have had access and control of that parking lot longer than 21 years. That's important in the state of Pennsylvania. 21 years. After 21 years of using something, you have the right to adverse possession, prescriptive easement, as long as it was land used in an open, notorious manner, uninterrupted. We did it notoriously because we put them meters up on there 2 times. We had regular meters, then we had the meters you just went and it was a swear, you put all your money in, and then I see they're free now, or there's no meter to them. Then we got to talk about the setback on that side by the library. There's no entrance there to the library between the post office. And as I said, it's a pedestrian walkway. So that shows you that we do not want to compromise that. But you might say, I think this is a zoning issue, period. You might say, no, it's not. We talked to an attorney. I don't care what you talk to. You didn't talk about commercial loading and unloading. There's laws to that. Regulations in Pennsylvania. That's very important. And I don't see how you're going to do it. It jeopardizes traffic pattern and the parking lot patrons at large. The spaces are 8 by 10 if they're regular. They're 10 by 20 if they're handicapped. And you need more handicap up there anyhow. This site has no plan that we're agreeing to. We keep asking Kenneth to stop putting the cart before the horse. We don't need you to be proving stuff, changing, giving zoning exceptions or any of that manner before you have a complete plan before you. That not only that the planning commission looked at and said, well, does it go to zoning or not, that you've looked at and presented to the public so we have the right academic questions to ask you. Right now, we have nothing. You're doing stuff in thin air. You did the same thing on Mill Road, and that thing's not even 7 foot, not even 5, I don't think, from the curb. We got a problem here. We got a problem because you're approving stuff before you even see a plan and you don't even have a bargaining chip. That's what it's all about. You know that. You got to have a bargaining chip because you're representing us. I don't care who wants to come in here. And another thing, in our town, we need social service agencies. We need more professional offices that provide services. We need to have a business in there in which the footprint fits the site. This does not fit the site. By no means. It's got plenty of opposition. And quite frankly, I don't know how it's going to sell here. It may sell long distance, but I don't think it's going to sell locally.
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
Oh, I can't finish because this is going to be, are you going to vote?
Quick one,
Yeah, are you going to vote? That's my question.
quick one.
Okay. What about the surrounding businesses? Where are they going to park? Okay. Where's the parking going to be for the building? Where's the parking going to be? Because they definitely can't use the garage because they're going to be a pickup service. Also, the fact about the matter is, sorry, there's no space for that truck or van to comfortably turn around there. There's no place. And as I said, if you don't need it, Ms. Kakamo got a picture of it. I gave it to her. We had a lease for that property. And it probably was 99 years. We have a lease for that. So to say we don't own it, when I rent my apartment, I'm owning it.
Thank you.
Remember that.
Any other public comment?
Laura Jackson, 318 East Linden Street. Again, I'm coming before the council to request that the meetings go back to the first and third Mondays. It seems like I've been away, but I've heard of like impromptu meetings, just meetings called without public knowing about it. So again, I'm asking council to first and third Mondays that they go back to.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And just to clarify, there are no public meetings that are not announced to the public as required by the law.
John Thomas, 406 South Broad Street. To that comment, say that, yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you say by law, but you're not getting to the people. So just by doing it by law, sticking a little thing in the paper without a headline on it, because I had to find it, or putting it online, doesn't mean you're getting to the people. You're doing it by law and you're legal, but being legal and being right are two different things. That's the only thing I'll say about that. Second, I think the public has a right to look at the lease for these parking spots. You know, we weren't even told about the lease. I don't know why you don't fight for the citizens of this town. Everybody wants that parking lot. Everybody. Every time a library wants a different parking relief or something, you give it to them. They built a 37,000 square foot building and they got 19 parking spots. Now that's ridiculous. Now they want to make this sale. Why didn't they do this a year ago? They always come in at the last minute and say, well, I got to have this done by this meeting or I'm going to lose this or I'm going to lose that. That's not your problem. That's their problem. When I served on council, we had to tell people, do not come in here at the last minute and ask for something, even though we want it. Because it's not fair to the public and it's not fair to you guys. Now, you guys always get these things where you say, oh, I got to have this done in 3 weeks, or now we're having a special meeting night over this stupid parking lot. This parking lot is one of the most last important parking lots in Kennett Square in the borough. One of them. We haven't seen the lease. If, you know, you guys can't break a lease. If it says 99 years, there's a procedure to go through. And the public wants to know what it is. And the library can't break a lease unless it gives so much time. I haven't seen the lease. I see it on the plan, lease to the borough of Kennett Square. And we put money in it and we've taken care of it for 60 years. You know, if you want to give them this right away, then we want the 7 parking spots so that we can maintain it for the people around. I can't believe that the library can't use it. If they can use the parking garage, they can use it, this place here and put money in it. If, you got the post office, you got the law offices across the street, you got the Legion building, which has done more for Kennett Square than you people all ever know over the years. The Legion building has been the friend of this borough in countable ways. And then you got Holly and then you got the people across the street. It's not that far to walk. I use that parking lot all the time rather than park on the street. And I've used that parking lot since I was 16 years old. And I'm a little bit older than now. So, I mean, that parking lot's important. I know you people aren't from here, don't care, don't think, but that parking lot's important. And before you pass anything, I think you ought to show the lease or at least resolve the lease and think about what the public wants. I don't know any merchant uptown that wants this parking lot disturbed. We're so used to it. It's so convenient for everybody. And we don't need another damn parking garage. We're smallest town in the country with 2 parking garages. You know, 6,200 people. And we give away part of our other parking lot. We can't afford it. Where are these people going to park? And if he takes those 7 spots, if you want to give him back, then we want the 7 spots. If not, then we'll have to talk about it later. Either adverse possession or eminent domain or something. We need the parking lot. We need that parking lot.
Mr. Thomas.
Ken Edwards, 412 Meredith Street. I've been listening every time this subject comes up. I've voiced my opinion before. But there's one group of people that we've not heard from concerning this. We've heard from Borough Council because you say it's it's borough property. We've heard from the prospective buyer because he was under the impression that was part of the land he was purchasing. One we haven't heard from to try to get an answer out of is the library, the seller. Now, the way I look at it, as an average, everyday run-of-the-mill Joe, okay, they're the ones that created this mess by leasing that portion of that behind the library, old library building to the borough for parking. Nobody from all 3 parties apparently checked to see what was what with it. So, I mean, if people are going to throw stones, whether it be me or the general public, borough council, the vendor, the prospective buyer, if you want to throw stones, throw them into that brand new high-class building. They're the ones that created this mess 62 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. And I would just caution everyone not to throw stones at the library right now. I just wanted to get that on the record, Ken.
I'm Holly Peters. I own and have my retail business in 109 South Broad Street. I'm here again to talk about the easement proposal, the parking lot behind my building. I really can't say anything more than what the folks have already said, except to underscore that I strongly object to an easement for the prospective buyer of the library. There's no need for this. Like today, for example, the parking lot needs to stay the way that it always has been. And during the last meeting, it was mentioned that, well, we're keeping it the same by not, selling it. So we're going to approach this easement option. That's not keeping it the same. Today, there was a big box truck in there in the back, backed right in where I think the proposed, area would be. And there didn't seem to be any problem with that truck coming and going, moving, cars coming around. So I don't even see why this is an issue. I don't even see why we're talking about it. I see that this is the tail totally wagging the dog. This borough should be saying to prospective businesses that come into town, this is how we do business. This is what your options are. And if that fits, you know, if the footprint fits your building and you can work with us, we would love to have you come here. I feel like it's the other way around. I feel like we're being pressed into making a fast decision because somebody's got a deadline. I have nothing against whatever the entity is. I just have a problem with the fact that there's all these entities, very important people, our community that use that parking lot in so many different ways, not just my building, not just the tenants in my building, but all the people that have stated for all the reasons, especially the Legion, and especially for the banquet hall, for the people that promote and do their life celebrations in that banquet hall. I haven't been here. I've been here 18 years, not as long as some of these folks who know the history. I'm surprised to hear that there's a lease. I would like to see what that lease was. I don't understand how the back and forth went with the $12,000, what that bought or what that gained. I just see that there's all this stuff going on behind the people, the citizens of this town, and nobody really knows like how does this all work? I would think this is a zoning issue. I wouldn't think that it's a council issue. But if it is a council issue, I'm just asking you to really strongly take into consideration what's at stake here. You're basically considering putting borough property and easement in there tethered with somebody who's a private entity. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be a fine gentleman or whatever the business is. It's just not good business. When that building sells, or maybe they move out and then they want to rent it to someone else, what's the first thing they're going to say? We've got a loading dock. We've got an easement. And then this is going to roll up on us again. I just think it's, and to Charlotte's point, it's like, what are our negotiating chips? Do we just sort of say, oh, okay. I mean, it wasn't like that for me. I paid thousands of dollars for parking for my tenants or my clients in my building. Where is that parking now? Are we going to just keep borrowing from that lot? What's going to happen when we sell the Genesis building? Isn't that like 300 occupancy? Like, I'm just asking for this process to be vetted properly and not just these backroom kind of, who's got their private interests at hand here. I mean, the library is the library and it's got its thing going. We do not have to do all this because of the urgency on the library's part, hence the urgency on their prospective buyer's part. I just see that it's kicking the can further down the road, or putting the cart before the horse. It's not the shared vision of the town to have this go through. I think that, it's frustrating, and I'm just here to encourage you all to think deeply about this, because for many folks, it feels like the fix is in and that we haven't had a chance, even though we get our 3 minutes up here to speak, that we really haven't been heard. You have businesses and people, private citizens and businesses all around this said parking lot. All of us have a larger building than the building that's going up for sale. My building is larger. The Legion building is 1.5 times larger than mine. And yet we're handing over parking spots, and we're handing over an egress access to a private entity. And you can't even begin to convince me that that's a good idea for the shared vision of the town, for here, today, tomorrow, whenever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peters. Any other public comment?
Good evening. Collis Townsend. I'm a library trustee. Here today to speak in support of this easement, obviously. Before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge Brad Piper, who is the chairman of our board. I appreciate his coming. More importantly, he has been one of the co-chairs of the new building committee. If there's anybody more detailed of what's take to build this building, Brad and his team have really pulled it off. And long-term, I think the town is indebted to him for his service. The easement, the terms of the easement, I've seen go back and forth. I've heard about. I'll leave it to Mr. Gish to speak to directly. However, I want to speak to why you would give such an easement. You know, at the last Borough Council meeting that I attended, after our presentation, there was a presentation on your strategic plan. And it talked about the need to encourage new businesses to come into town. Because yeah, you know, when Genesis vacancy occurs, we're going to have a need to bring new businesses in. I've been here for 30 plus years off and on. And I've seen the town go up and down. And I've seen the economy go up and down. So we're in a great position right now, but it's not always so. And I do think it is incumbent on you all to bring good new businesses to town. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know Mr. Gish and Gish Furniture over the last couple of months. They're outstanding. You cannot find a better tenant, whatever owner for this property. I think he's going to be a wonderful addition to the borough. It's a clean business. It's a sound business. I think there's some misunderstanding about the easement itself. The real benefit of the easement is it almost guarantees the lot's not going to be changed in the future, or foreseeable future at least. There's no intent to change any of the parking, any of the access egress. They can get a truck there, as someone mentioned, they can get a truck there today. That's all fine. It's only in the future, should a future council make a decision, that that access may be cut off. And you may say, well, why do that? Well, my understanding is not only are they buying the building, which had a very hefty, we were asking $1.65 million. That's the initial investment in this building. They're also going to be making close to a $1.2 million enhancements and renovations. So why would you make those enhancements if your future access to a part of that building where the interior of the building has a ramp in it already? There's already a ramp inside the building, inside the library. You know, they just want to make sure that these changes they're making, they can use in the future. They're not looking to change the lot. They're just looking to make sure they can use the building that they're investing in. And I'm asking you to support that investment. It's as simple as that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Calvin. Any other public comment? All right, there being none, we will move to our action items. The first one, we'll get this one out of the way. So this is more or less a housekeeping item, considering the resolution authorizing the application and signers for the Chester County Community Revitalization Grant to repair and revitalize Willow Street. This council has previously voted to approve the application for the Chester County Community Revitalization Program for the purpose of repaving Willow Street. And we thought that a letter of support was adequate enough, but per the grant application, a formal resolution of support is requested. So basically, this is just replacing that letter of support with a formal resolution accepting that $500,000. Any questions? Is Kyle on? Okay, I didn't know if there were any.
Yes, I am.
That needed to go to Kyle. Kyle, did I summarize that pretty well?
Yes, well said.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution. Second?
Second.
All right. Any council discussion? Again, we've already voted on this. This is just to formalize it in a resolution. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, while you're all here. So this is an easement request for the portion of the municipal parking lot for the buyer of the old library. And of course, this has come back and forth over the last couple months in different variations, starting with a sale, then some discussions back and forth about the easement. And I think we're really looking at both sides of that coin, like council always tries to do, with we have a new business that we really want to welcome into town. And we have this asset that we want to not give up and see if there's a way that we're able to do that. It seems that the will of council over the last council meeting or two, and we did have an executive discussion about this last or 2 weeks ago as well, that the will of council was to at least move forward and put a contract together that we looked at. And it really comes down to 5 or 6 specific things, with the first right of refusal, what the fee is, and that could be annual or yearly. Looking at the parking meters, of course, the hours, the box truck size, also with special events and the notice that Borough Council is giving prior to those events. And I think that that captures what we really need to nail down in this discussion. So Mike, I'm going to tee it up to you and maybe, and I'm talking to Mike Crotty, who's our voice in the sky, to sort of just make sure that I captured that correctly. If that seems to be the direction that we should be going for the next time, for the immediate time being. And also maybe just a little clarification exactly of what an access easement provides. That would be wonderful.
Sure. Thanks, Doug. So a couple things just to note. First, this was discussed at our last meeting. By this I mean the special meeting we're here for tonight. So the concept of us having the meeting was not sprung on anyone. In addition to being advertised, it was discussed at the last tonight. The draft agreement was also posted on the borough's website, and as of last Friday, and that version is the version that the applicant first submitted to us, and then I marked it up based on those discussions from our May 1st meeting. The applicant had some responses to some of those items, and I'll walk through those in a minute. To kind of step back bigger picture, I did want to touch on what this agreement is not. This agreement is not zoning relief or land development relief for the applicant. It's not giving up any borough parking spaces on borough property. Instead, what it is, it's an access easement agreement where a kind of rectangular sliver of our borough parking lot property they want to have as access, again, not to take away parking spaces, but to have a kind of dedicated lane of access in our parking lot that stays, so that they have the certainty of that continued access in the future. With that kind of background, the 6 issues, as Doug outlined, are the ones that would be appropriate to get feedback from council on. The first 1/2 are going to be whether the consideration or the money that the borough is given for this is the applicant proposed a one-time fee of $8,500, or whether that is an annual payment that, that we set an annual payment that the applicant has to otherwise make each year to keep that area reserved for us. The second kind of component of that, or kind of subsection of that, is whether the parking meters for the existing 7 parking spaces, which are shown and reflected on their parcel, whether those parking meters stay in place. Number 3 is going to be the right of first refusal that the applicant has requested in the latest draft, which is what their response to my comments were over the weekend. Number 4 is going to be the truck size. Going off of the discussion from May 1st, the truck size we incorporated was of a typical box truck, which is what we understand the applicant had initially discussed. And the applicant has requested that there not be a limit on the truck size that would use that access easement. Number 5 is the day and time restriction. What we had incorporated in the draft, my draft response to theirs, was Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. for the use of that access easement, or at least the dedicated use of that access easement. And the applicant has requested that there be no day or time restriction on their use of it. And last but not least, the borough events and kind of precluding us from using it at any point in the future. We did incorporate a provision that the borough still maintain the ability to use that lot and potentially close off that access easement giving notice to them, of course, for any kind of particular special borough events. And we would have that maintained, as well as to make sure that if borough were to ever decide to want to do something with that lot, we can still do it, provided that we continue to maintain that access easement agreement, or that access easement to the Gish Furniture Store. So that's kind of my summary of the 6 items. It might be beneficial if we walk through with discussion from council on each of those items, so we can kind of get put a whole picture together on each of them. And then once we do that, get feedback from Gish on them, and then decide whether council wants to move forward with the vote on the agreement.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike before we move forward?
There's nothing in there about a default notice or termination.
Mike, did you hear that?
I'm sorry, Kathleen, I missed what you said.
So there was no provisions, and I think if it depends on what we're doing financially about default notification. Default on provisions.
So your question was, there's no provisions about notifications? Hey, Doug, is there a possibility you can repeat her question?
Are there any provisions in the contract about if they default?
Oh, sure. Thank you. So with any default, the remedy for the borough would be either a breach of contract, where we'd be able to bring a breach of contract action, or cancellation of any kind of permit and their ability to use the access easement. That's inherent in any agreement that we would put together.
So one of my concerns with the location of the easement being in front of we're going with the plan as we've seen it. If you went by there today, the library had a moving truck in the easement area. You could only move one car past this truck. Cars that were parked there are legitimate parking spots. Would have had difficulty pulling in and out. So if we're looking at something that's going to cause the least amount of concern for act, that second plan that Rob and Terry had provided, which is the straight line back towards the old building, created the least interruption if for some reason a truck had to be sitting waiting and would not block any of the other spots. So I still have a concern about that, because you could visually see how that might become a problem. Truck is sitting there. Something that's of concern.
Here's what I'd like to do, just so we're following proper protocol. Can we nail down these items on the contract first, and then we'll get a motion on it, and then we can discuss and have deliberation on any other items? That's what I think would be, that's how I'd like to go about doing this. So if we can, one, look at the fee, and right now it's $8,500 for an annual payment. And maybe what I can do first, this is going to be a lot of winging it tonight. Mr. Gish, did you want to come up and just give an overview and a little background? And there may be some things that are going to be what we're discussing anyway. So it just might give you an opportunity to preempt some of that back and forth unnecessarily.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
And thank you for the kind words about, the company. Appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot of things and we want to be flexible with this. I mean, we want to be a part of the community. We want to do what's best for the community as well. And, in discussing, there's a huge fear of missing parking spots and the businesses downtown not having the access of what they currently have. And not sure how many familiar people are with furniture stores, but we are a low volume business, much lower than what the library itself would be. And so whereas we'd have 9 parking spots there for our use, I would believe that the library at many times overflowed from those 9 into many additional spots that were a part of the actual lot itself. So for our use, if we ever have 9 people in our store at one point in time, that's a pretty crazy furniture day for us. So that's not something that we anticipate. So I think from the community standpoint, our business going in there as opposed to the library will actually free up some of the common spaces outside of the 9 that will actually be on our property. And if we, any business, anybody that buys that property, those 9 parking spots are going with that property unless something, happens with the library. But if a business was going to give up to buy that building without any property, they aren't going to pay $1.6 million for the property and not have a single parking spot. But, well, you never know. But I think that should lower the concerns as far as from the local businesses. I think you will have more spots with us being in there as opposed to the library. So that's just one thing I wanted to clear up. And as far as these other issues, if we want to go down item by item to address, because I think my attorney was probably a little overzealous in some of these things, and whereas maybe your attorney was too. And I think there's plenty of room for negotiation and flexibility here. So we pushed back on the time and use restrictions, and in speaking with some of the library guys, I was trying to get a feel for why your attorney wanted a restriction. Because to me, if we're driving on that property, like maybe early in the morning or later in the evening when not that many people there, that'd actually be a good thing. And the feedback was, well, they don't want people driving there all times of night, which is understandable. So I would be happy to amend that to like maybe 6 in the morning till 10 at night. That way we won't disturb local people if there's a bed and breakfast back there or whatever. That would be a reasonable thing for us, because our delivery guys, they usually get out early, and I'm guessing that lot is going to be a great, very accessible 6, 7 o'clock in the morning as opposed to noon. As far as the restricting the vehicle size, I mean, I saw a truck going down Main Street today, semi. I mean, I get it. It's not nice to drive a semi in here. And so I'm fine going back to the box truck size wise. The parking meet.
That was 26 feet.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All our trucks are non-CDL trucks. That would be the total overall length would be 26 foot or less. Yeah. Parking meters. Yeah, we figure that's our property. We want to police our property. It's my understanding that the total revenue generated from that parking lot's around $13,000 a year. from what when we were looking at purchasing the property. I think that was the number that was quoted to us. So I don't think it's going to be a great loss of revenue. Having, not having meters on our spots to the borough. And I don't want to charge my customers a fee to come shop for furniture. I mean, it's just, well, that'd be too restrictive for us. And I'm not sure what the first right of refusal. I get that we would, instead of first right of refusal, we'd propose I'm trying to think that the wording now is a higher or a higher or better offer than anybody. That if we're able to give a higher or better offer than any other possible purchaser. And as far as the length of the agreement, that does not need to go in perpetuity. That would end with Samuel Brothers Realty B, which is the buying our real estate holding company, selling the property. When Samuel Brothers Realty B ever sells the property, then the easement would be released, and it'd be up to the purchaser to renegotiate with you guys. I think that addresses all of them. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, if they don't have, did they not have that or? Had you guys received our schematics of what it's just to give you an idea of what our designers, how we are envisioning the building. Obviously some ADA additional. Another thing I heard a concern about, somebody mentioned about a handicap parking spot. We obviously, I think by code, we have to retain one. But I would agree that I think that the municipality probably ought to have one too. So any direct, in any of those answers, does anybody have a direct questions or?
Any questions for Mr. Gish on those items?
You want to address the borough using it for 48 hours?
Oh, yes,
Oh,
I
that
forgot
was
that,
the
yes.
Special events, thank you.
Yes. And I think our main concern is that 48 hour, or what was it originally? 4 days, I think, that we could possibly not have access to our dock for 4 days. That seemed a little excessive to us. That 2 days to us seems like it'd be a more reasonable request. Not saying that we couldn't do 4 days if we worked it out, but our response was we'd like to see 2 days as opposed to 4 days.
Have you been to the Mushroom Festival?
No, but I want to be open for Mushroom Festival.
Holly, how much time do you lose at the Mushroom Festival?
Gotcha. Well, how about this? How about we designate those 4 days? We say 4 days, the Mushroom Festival, it's 4 days. And then we know in advance, it's a yearly event, and we'd be happy to do that 4 days during the Mushroom Festival.
I'd like to look at the actual special events. I think it's Friday at 5 or 6. And it goes till 10 o'clock Sunday. Right,
She
Gina?
is here.
Hi, hey. 5. Right, okay, thank you. Yep,
And that, yeah. Yeah, and we could work with that. Mhm. Well, what we're talking about is just you not allowing access to that. So, so it'd be like some kind of structure or something on on the
if there would be
easement.
something impeding it, if there's some access that couldn't be granted for, it would be the 2 days. max, is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. Parking will remain a challenge.
Which, what, is there ever an instance where you don't have access to that parking lot? Okay. So we're talking about a hypothetical situation that might arise.
2 days generally is what you're asking. Or
Yeah,
saying
for,
could be worked in. I think a lot of this comes to communication too, and just making sure you're aware, you can plan accordingly. We're making sure that we're putting everything.
yeah, that's, I mean, our restock trucks probably, I mean, I would guess are coming once a week. So we can typically work out a schedule. And if, especially if we have hard dates like the Mushroom Festival where it's just not going to work those 4 days, as long as my guys know, a fair amount in advance. But, if it's 4 days, every other week, then that's when we run into difficulties.
You're typically closed on Sundays anyway.
Yes, sir.
Will you be closed on Sundays here?
Yes.
Any questions? Mr. Bush? Oh. Number one here. So the annual fee was 8,500, and that's a one-time. So dollar amount, or are we? I think that maybe a yearly fee might be a little more palatable. Any thoughts on that?
I think at the meeting we had, we discussed that a yearly fee was a better option for keeping this as easement, understanding that it's not permanent. It's a better option.
Yeah, the same thing, that I think if it, by having an annual fee due and generating a bill versus the annual conversation, so
Mhm.
it doesn't get forgotten. And if you own the building for 20 years and it's $1,500 a year, it's more revenue to the borough.
Sure.
So I'm more in favor of seeing an annual bill that, again, reminds everybody on an annual basis that it's a temporary use easement that runs with the ownership of the building, and the fee then it becomes commensurate with the length of time as opposed to an initial.
I'm fine with that. We'll have to decide what a fair value would be, and I would ask that would commiserate on our occupancy when we got our occupancy.
Why would the easement not be preferable to run straight back towards Why do you have to come through the other parking spots area?
Well, either way, our trucks would still drive there. I mean, so in actuality, you'd be giving up more rights if we did that, because we'd still be driving that route anyway. And the way I forget to be honest, I forget all the terms. We looked at it in depth, and we came to conclude that that was the best way. But I don't recall all the reasons.
It seems like more turns. If you're coming from that direction, it seems like there's more turns that the truck has to make
Yeah.
to get back into your spot. Whereas the other direction, it's with the post office trucks back in from that.
Yes, that was another issue, and yeah, with the community's concern on parking, that was another concern as far as the parking spot itself. Now, I don't know. If we would have to lose that parking spot if the easement's granted, or if it's just in the future that it could possibly be left, but it,
There's just no possibility of creating congestion in front of parking spots if it was straight back. Up from Marsh.
well, the other thing is that the current easement as described does not disrupt any of the way, how it is right now at all. And so in the interest of no change, that was another component of it, whereas nothing, we weren't changing the status quo. Whereas if we did do the other one, then that could possibly eliminate that one parking lot spot. And if you see the truck's going to have to angle back in through there
From
to
the,
hit
from
the
the
spot.
markings that were left on the parking lot, I'm not sure who did those. It seemed like there was an angle set in for a turn angle. That's very close to that last parking spot anyway. So my viewpoint is more from the
Wait.
least amount of
Yeah.
possibility of a car getting locked in or damaged.
I remembered it now. If you go out to the parking lot now, and you'll see the line actually drawn on there.
Mhm.
So if you were to sell this municipal lot 5 years down the road and somebody builds right on that line, my customers aren't even going to be able to access their parking spots.
I don't know if you've been hearing the conversations we've been having, but there's no interest in us selling this parking lot
I-
or changing it.
I-
So
You never know. If you don't, that's no problem. But the main thing, that the whole reason for the easement is that for us, that the parking lot doesn't change, or at least that access doesn't change from what it is now. But if that property ever sells, or you guys decide to build a wall right there, none of all my parking lots become inaccessible. Did you see this?
oh, I was there today. I know where the lines are.
So circling back to the fee, if we can nail that down, proposed was an $8,500 one time. And I think that when we were talking about the annual, I think that we had said $1,000 a year. So the total would be, looking at, was it two? One or two. One of the two. But anyway, with cost of living adjustments, what have you, that we just be just keeping up with inflation.
Well, $1,000 sounds a lot better, but, I guess my stance is this is like found money for you guys, for the borough.
It's not found
Ma-
money.
Please,
Because I am not asking for anything from the borough. The borough is not giving me anything other than the promise that nothing's ever going to get built on that. But in the interest of getting the deal done, yeah, I'd do 15.
thank you. I was going to bring up the parking spaces too with the 13,000 in revenue as well. So that's just a factor to consider. 15 with the meters.
Well, in addition, I'm also paying what, $1,000 per slot above my 9. So, yeah.
Right. So I think we hit on all the items. Mike, are you capturing all this?
Yeah, so if I could possibly recap, it would be a $1,500 annual. Keeping the 7 parking meters
Not keeping the.
for the special. I'm sorry, not keeping the parking meters?
No, that's becomes our property. That'll be Gish's Furniture's parking.
Okay, gotcha. For the special events, it would be 2 days with the exception of the Mushroom Festival, which would be potential 4 days. The day and time restriction for deliveries or usage would be 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And am I right? That would be Monday through Saturday, or I assume you're not going to be doing deliveries if you're closed on Saturday. I'm sorry, closed on Sunday.
Correct. Now, if there was a special event, like, for instance, our opening of the store where we'll want to hit it pretty hard, who would I contact as far as a special request there? Or could we
Just
just
Kyle.
put in there that for the opening, we would need maybe 24-hour access for like 3 days?
I would run that through the police chief, and then if it needed to be a special events endorsement or go to public safety.
Okay.
consider it.
What are your store hours?
Mondays,
Can we
Wednesdays.
we have Mike?
This is on the point of access till 10
Okay.
PM at night.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if your store is open to 10 PM at night, I understand, but
Yeah. Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 till 8, Tuesday, Thursday, 10 to 6.
do you usually get deliveries at 8 o'clock at night?
No, we don't.
I would push back on
There's-
that one a little bit too. I mean, I think 10 o'clock, the parking lot, I'm sure you've been there 100 times recently. Parking lot gets used rarely during the day, at least
Mhm.
my experience walking through it. There's a few cars there. It gets used a lot for special events or in the evenings, for the
Mhm.
bars and restaurants and walking around town. I mean, to me, if you don't do deliveries or pickups until, 8 o'clock, if you could live with 7 o'clock or something like that, to me, frees the parking lot up better when it's most used.
And we're talking about the delivery
The
truck
delivery,
access.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm fine with that. Again, my biggest concern would be early morning, access there. My delivery guys don't like, let's do 6. We could do 6 to 6.
Okay, I got that. And then truck size, what I heard was okay with the 26-foot length truck restriction.
Semi truck's not going to fit back there.
Mhm.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
No,
We
yeah.
won't load it there 'cause, yeah, either.
And then in place of the right of first refusal would be a higher or better offer.
It's not first refusal.
No, higher or better.
Mike, how would that work? If the borough sells a piece of property now, doesn't that have to be a public process where it's basically, I mean, legally, isn't there a process there?
Mhm.
There is. So we would typically market it and effectively put it out to bid. And then anyone can then bid on that, with whatever offer they're going to make. With this provision in place, we'd have to make that subject to this provision so that if someone came in and bid $1 million, I'm just making up numbers, by the way, someone came in and bid $1 million, it would be subject to the potential that that bid would not go forward if B Brothers partnership would exercise its rights and pay $1 million plus.
Isn't that open to anybody?
The bidding process, it is, yes.
I'm not sure that would
But-
help.
I get last bid. Right?
That's right.
But legally, can we do that? Mike, could?
We could, yeah, it would, because it's still subject to it. Any kind of bid we put out would be subject to that provision being invoked.
What's that provision again? Mike? What
Oh,
provision?
sorry, that's the higher or better, offer provision. That would be, he would have to beat whatever offer was put out there.
And I'm even willing to put a percent on it, say 5%. So that way the borough is guaranteed that they're going to get, well, if I purchase it, they're going to get 5% more than anybody else was willing to pay.
I think we have to keep it open to,
It is open.
not if you're making this a provision. Doesn't anybody have that right?
Mhm.
How is that fair to any other business in this?
Yeah, the solicitor just said.
Mike, Mike, would you like to clarify this, please?
Yeah, so when people are away from the mic, it's a little bit hard to hear them, but the way it would work if we were to sell the property would be, we would put it out to through a normal bidding process. It would be, probably go through a broker. We'd get and solicit any offers for the property. All of that would be subject to this provision being invoked, the possibility of it being invoked. So we wouldn't be running afoul of any provisions of the Borough Code. Can you hear me still? So make sure I didn't go away. Okay, so Borough Code,
All right, let's have one person talk, and we don't want this to just go.
so
So-
it's still a business term business decision as to whether council wants to restrict the future borough's actions if that were ever to take place.
Of all the items that we're talking about, this is the one that I like the least, because it gives a private entity kind of a trump card of what the borough might want to do. So this is definitely one that I would like to just see scratched.
So again, I'm trying to get that line of negotiation and questioning, and then we can work out what we agree and disagree with after the motion's made. That's fine.
Mike, could I ask a question quickly?
Go ahead, Kyle.
I can't think of a specific situation for this, but if the borough were to enter into some kind of public-private partnership for use of that lot, maybe someone would build a garage for us. If it was a less than, bid up rate for that lot, how would this play into that? Again, I don't have any specific thing in mind. I'm just trying to think through this whole issue. Thanks.
Yeah, so it would, if this provision were in place, that public-private partnership or any kind of partnership, private-private or public-public partnership would be subject to that provision.
Based on that, I would recommend not including that with the
John,
the clear statement that the borough has made clear. The borough's made clear we have no
John,
intention of selling that lot.
Go ahead, Kyle.
You know what?
I
we'll-
would just say that I recommend.
pull that. We're fine with it. But what you don't realize is basically that was giving the borough an opportunity at an extra 5% at no cost to you. But it's no big deal. We'll pull it off. Yeah, we'll pull it off.
All right, so we have the 6 items captured by Mr. Crotty. So with that first right of refusal, higher or better offer pooled, there are now 5 items that are captured. So with that said, we've nailed down the contractual piece of this. So I will entertain a motion to move forward with the contract or with the easement agreement with these edits made.
Are you comfortable with those terms? Then you're free to keep those terms and not.
Yes. Yes.
I'll make that motion.
We want to clarify that the parking meters go, that
Yes,
we,
that
okay,
was captured.
that our property becomes our property.
I'm sorry, on that note, there seems to have been a document that resurfaced recently that says there's a lease between the library and the borough on those parking spots. And we have not done our due diligence to figure out if that exists or it is expired. And I think a lot of what we are doing is on assumptions and not on doing our due diligence on this property. And that's been causing a lot of the issues that have been coming up from the public as well as from myself. And I think we're going a little too fast on all this.
No one's seen.
Have we done our due diligence to look for it? Because suddenly there is a document that was found that states it.
So Kyle and or Mike, is there clarification about this lease and the due diligence?
Yeah, sure. So if I could speak to it, so not, because I haven't seen any lease and I haven't seen any lease recorded against either property. But irrespective of that, this access easement agreement would not impact or nullify a lease if there is a lease out there that carries with the property. That's kind of its own separate issue. This would not relieve anyone from any responsibilities under any other contractual agreements or recorded agreements that are out there.
So where did this document come from?
So this is a drawing, but we do not, I'm not saying it's official or unofficial, but it's a drawing. And it's
If there is a lease, how would that affect?
Ms. Watson, I appreciate your comments, but please. I'm trying to keep the quorum and conversation moving in the right direction. Mr. Crotty.
Yep, Doug.
I didn't hear what your last comment was.
So if there is a lease that exists, this access easement agreement does not affect it. It doesn't nullify it. It doesn't confirm or, reapprove it. That kind of would stand on its own if if it's valid and in effect.
So I'm relying on my solicitor's opinion. So there is a motion to move forward with this contract. Is there a second? I will second it. Council discussion.
Is the lease from the borough to the library for those parking spots? So we could technically own it, the borough, those parking spots. Is that what that's saying? Oh, it's the opposite. So you're saying that those parking spots have always belonged to that building and the borough is. Who owns the land? What does that lease? Borough was leasing that land off the library.
Given that we're not clear on all of that, is it worth delaying the conversation until we?
It doesn't affect it.
Right, that's,
Doesn't affect.
I mean, we need to know if there's a lease.
I think that needs to be explored.
right, it might affect the sale of the property, but it does not affect the easement.
Might affect sale of the property.
Where did you get that? Is there documentation? Is there, but is there a legal agreement, a lease that goes with that?
Survey the area, we have this cleared up, and we're talking about. Nobody's afraid of losing parking, but to guarantee parking stays with.
It's wholly our decision and always has been.
Right.
Right, and we're not giving up any parking.
We're not selling it either.
Access difficult to do it. Let's do some imaginary wall.
The Gishes can buy this property and use the parking lot as it is today.
Yes.
This gives the borough an extra $14,000 for parking relief and $1,500 a year as long as the Gishes own property. To me, that's a financial gain. for the borough. I also believe that you bringing your store to the borough is a good thing for our primary retail district, borough, which we're trying to build up and drive retail in that portion. Very good use of- A lot of uses that I think would be less ideal for the borough personally in terms of space. And if this is the look of what the library will become, I think it's even better. I didn't know I had seen that. So you can use the lot. Now, you don't have to do this, but the reason you're doing it, I believe, is because if you don't do it, then a future council, not this one, because we understand the borough wants to keep that lot as a parking lot, just as. But some future council could come in and say, we're going to sell it, or we're going to put up a parking garage. You won't be able to get your goods in and out of that. As a business, that's a risk that I wouldn't take either, I certainly. I appreciate your willingness to be flexible with some of the terms, drop the first right and that sort of thing. If a car or a truck was in there today and the parking lot was full, you would go up to the driver and you would say, get out. And if they said no, or they were being a jerk, you'd call the police and say, hey, can you please get them to move that truck or that car? The same thing would happen in the future if the truck is blocking something, but I think I heard someone say that the truck actually will have space on your property to actually sit there. You just need to back it in and pull it over. There was a comment earlier about, what's in the best interest of the borough. I believe this is. I think it's a good use of that property. I think it gains the borough revenue that it doesn't have today, and it brings a nice retail establishment to our retail area.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from council? As it relates to, and Bob, I appreciate you going first because I will. I do think that this is that sweet spot we're looking for to bring business into town to contribute to State Street and to maintain. So easement wise, I do think that the lease issue need to be researched more between the parties that were involved with it. If we can find it, then we'll deal with that. But as for this easement, anything else?
I think that the lease, not the lease, sorry, that the easement, as it's being presented, is a reasonable request for a business to maintain its operations. I think that there are a lot of hypotheticals that have been thrown out of what might allow, what could happen. And I think that we'll say the risk analysis of any of those extreme hypotheticals actually coming to occur is so unlikely. As was pointed out, today there was a truck that was parked long ways on the library, and that's without an easement. So, nothing, the easement is not going to cause anything worse to occur than what can already occur at the parking lot. Trucks can sit there and park, and they can be asked to move and so on. The easement helps us, or future councils has been mentioned, keep it as a parking lot. So I fail to, I'll say, be convinced that granting an easement that is attached to the prospective buyer and is written into the contract to not extend beyond that is some sort of apocalyptic scenario. I've been wrong before. I could be wrong. I hope that I'm not. But like I said, I have not been convinced otherwise.
There being none, we'll take a vote and we will do a roll call. So all in favor, or please, when Rachel calls your name, yay or no, yay or nay, to accept the easement agreement outlined with the 5 changes that were captured by Mr. Crotty.
Would it be possible, Doug, to run through the 5 changes just one more time for me?
Mike, are you still on the phone? Because you have them all written out very nicely.
Yep.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I can. So the first one is $1,500 per year. And again, this is limited to Samuel Brothers B and their use. The second is a truck size limitation of 26 feet in length. The next one is the time restriction Monday through Saturday, 6 to 6 for deliveries. Next, I think I'm number 4 for special events notice. I'm sorry, 2 days, potential of 2 days closure consecutively with the exception of the Mushroom Festival, which would be 4 days. No to the parking meters. And that's it. So those items.
And they pulled the first right of refusal / higher or better.
Yes, I deleted that already. Yep.
Okay. All in favor of those changes, we'll do a roll call.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries 4 to 3.
Can I respond to that?
You can.
I asked our council if, because I am in the library fundraising committee. We're almost there. So if anyone has a couple of dollars they'd like to donate to have the library come over the top, maybe get a sponsorship or something like that. I spoke to our solicitor and he said that based on your participation on the fundraising committee only, I'm not a director, an officer, an owner, an employee, or a person with any financial interest with respect to the library. I'm not sure if everyone, can I have the floor for a second?
Yep.
Accordingly, the conflict of interest term under Pennsylvania State Ethics Act would not trigger. I don't have to recuse myself. Is that correct, Mr. Solicitor?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you both. All right, that is the end of our action items. Thank you for everyone's participation tonight. Meeting is adjourned.
Who said that?